Hello. Me an odd demo for me. I want to show how I assemble a practice German longsword, and I've made a couple of changes with these over time. The first ones are made of bamboo; they didn't really hold up as well as I would have liked. This one is made out of 3/4 inch Schedule 40 pipe, but most of the ones I'm using for the kids are 1/2 inch Schedule 40. The 3/4 I'm making for myself. I find that the 1/2 inch isn't quite big enough for my hands, so I want to make one a little bit bigger. And the other thing that I've changed with how I was making them, before I was leaving these three pieces hollow for the cross hilt and the handle, but for these ones I actually wanted to add a little bit of counterbalancing weight. The blade is quite overbalanced for these practice swords, so I actually filled the ends of these pieces with insulating foam, expanding foam, and then filled them with sand, tamped that down, and then topped it off with more foam. So these three pieces have been filled with sand for extra weight. That's almost a pound of extra weight. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I use a one-step clear adhesive, PVC adhesive. It's just a little bit nicer looking, I think, to have the clear instead of doing the blue stain. But it's a purely aesthetic choice. And so I'm just going to glue these pieces together. And the main blade of this one is actually 35 inches. I made them in 3 different sizes. The shortest for the younger and smaller club participants was 30 inches, then a 32-inch one, and a 35-inch one. So this one's 35. I find that most of the kids were more comfortable using a 30-inch, honestly. The 34s, the 35s were pretty long for almost everybody. So I think when in doubt, probably go with a 30. But your student may actually remember which size. I have it written on them. So they might end up remembering which size they prefer. The sizes are actually based on the regulation foil lengths for different divisions. I don't know that there is any real regulation lengths for teaching German longsword to children, so I just went with the foil lengths to get me a good place to start. All right, so it doesn't take much to glue these together. I'm probably going to add another change to this. I just didn't get the pieces yet. But I'm probably going to cap these, all 3 of these, with a PVC cap. I'm pretty sure that this foam is not going to, it's going to fail at some point if I just leave it uncovered all the time. And I know if I let kids use this, they'll pick it out of there. I don't want the sand to come out. So it won't be in this video, but I would probably add a PVC cap to these 3 pieces here. Now, for the long part of this, I've made a couple of adjustments kind of as we've been working with them. One problem that I ran into is that they have a tendency to pull the foam off of the swords. So what I'm doing now is I split the first 5 inches of the foam, and I'm going to go ahead and get this slid down on here. And basically, I just kind of start at the top and just kind of slide it down bit by bit. I don't like opening the split all the way up. I got I'm sorry, I should tell you what this foam is. So this is a pipe insulating foam that you can just get at the hardware store. And it comes in for different thickness pipe. So for the 1/2-inch pipe, you use the 1/2-inch insulating foam. For the 3/4-inch pipe, use the 3/4-inch foam. And there's a couple different ones. I actually like the less expensive one, which is it's split, but you have to pull it apart on that seam in order to open it. And I leave most of it together. There's another one which is split, but it has an adhesive strip. It's nice, but it's another like $1 or so. If you have to make 20 of them or something like that, then it's extra money, and I just didn't feel like paying the extra for something that was a pretty small difference. All right, there we go. So once I get this down to the bottom here, what I'm doing is coating this with rubber cement. So it's a contact adhesive. You use any contact adhesive you want. I just happen to have a lot of rubber cement laying around from doing kids' classes. So I'm going to coat the rubber, coat the pipe, and as you may know, contact cement works by drying it out a little bit before you push it together. So this really only works if you split the cushion, if you split the foam, so you can get in there and then blow on it to dry it, and then stick it back together. It doesn't really work if you kind of like put it on there and then try and slide it onto it. You really need it to dry out. So I'm going to open this up a little, blow inside there, get that to get nice and tacky. There we go. I'm going to pull that together, and then I'm going to use I'm going to use both some tape to hold this together and a zip tie. There's a lot of tape involved in this. One sec, I'm going to go grab that tape. So I use 3 different types of duct tape. The first one, the silver, is the strongest, and I use this for most of the layers. And then I use the white and the black basically to just segment the blade into different zones. So I'll use the silver on here to get this so I can bring this together. But I'll be going over it with black. This is going to be the black bottom zone of the blade. So this is just to get this cinched together, in this case, so that I can put a zip tie on it. So the thought here is that the glue is going to do the heavy lifting, as far as this is going to keep this foam from wanting to slide, but the zip tie is also going to be helping to compress this so that it doesn't really want to move very far. I'll trim that off in a little bit. At the other end here, I find the tip of the sword, tip of the blade, and then I'm going to use a zip tie right at the end of the pipe. Just going to pinch that so I can find it. There we go. Now you don't want to do it too hard, or you'll actually just tear right through the foam. Found that out before. And then I'll use a pair of scissors and trim this. There we go. I've got a little bit more space. I can pull that a bit tighter. All right, that's good. I'll trim off my extra. There we go. Now, I've got a zip tie at this end. And at this end, there's a zip tie that this isn't going to keep the foam from sliding. This is just to make it so that the tip has extra cushion. So when we're poking each other with it, there's even more here to keep you from getting poked. Now I'm going to step aside for a few minutes, and I'm going to actually drill 2 holes that are going to go through the foam and through the PVC. And I'll put 2 zip ties in those. I'd say do it one of 2 ways. I might try it a couple different ways and see which works best. They've broken 1 zip tie. So either make 1 larger hole and put 2 zip ties through it, or 2 holes with 2 zip ties. Not sure which one's going to work better. Might just do 1 hole with 2 zip ties on this one. We'll see how that holds up. All right, so I'll be back once I get those holes drilled. All right, I'm back, and I drilled a hole about 1 inch from the tip. The reason I'm putting that hole in these zip ties through here is to keep the foam from sliding. But if I put a hole through the PVC lower down in the blade, I think it's going to actually weaken it, and it's pretty likely that that'll get snapped off at that point. So trying to keep the integrity of the blade and still keep it from sliding. And I've been finding that if I did one of these, when they'll mess around and they'll grab each other's swords and they kind of pull them like this, and that invariably is going to snap the single one that's here and break it off. So hoping 3 of them will do the job. All right, then I'm going to take some of the silver and I pull this extra piece down as I stick that, hold it, and then pull the other side down. So I want to kind of compress this as much as I can. Do it again in the opposite direction, so making like a plus or a cross. Pull that side down, pull this side down. There we go. Nice and tight. Then I'm going to make a couple of narrower strips. And then that way I can pull down these points that form from the initial plus and kind of help round this off a little bit so it doesn't have squared edges. Faces are not supposed to be a target, but I don't want anything squared off and sharp. Could inadvertently get somebody in the eye or anything like that. Then I'm going to go around the perimeter. And the job of this tape is basically to just hold all of this kind of in place and just make it nice and neat. Like I said, I'm going to go over all the silver with another color in order to give it its 2 zones. I'm going to put one down here to just, again, kind of cover up this zip tie. And you can kind of push the zip tie into the foam as you pull the tape, so it's a little bit sunken. There we go. All right. Now I'm going to take and do a double wrapping from the top to the bottom in a spiral, and then from the bottom to the top in a spiral crossing over the first spiral. And that's going to all be with the silver tape. I'll do that and be right back. All right, I want to apologize. I'm not sure what happened to the audio in this section here, but I'm going to go ahead and just put in a voiceover. The audio comes back in the final clip. Anyhow, I've come back here and I've completed wrapping the blade with 2 layers of the silver duct tape. The tape is essentially just protecting the foam from damage. So it's going to make the foam last a lot longer, and otherwise the foam would be tearing. If you want to, you could essentially just do the silver. After putting the silver on, I do 2 more coats of white and black duct tape. So that is to differentiate the 2 segments of the blade. This blade is essentially 36 inches in length if you take in that extra little bit of foam at the tip. So I'm marking it at the halfway point, and the bottom half of the blade is considered the strong blade, or almost like the shield. That's going to be done with black tape. And the top half of the blade is the weak blade, or the cutting edge of the blade, and that's done with the white tape. So when I'm training, I can explain which side of the blade we're using for different things, and it makes a little bit more sense this way. And all I'm doing is just putting a couple of bands of the white to show where that starts and stops. Here I'm just explaining what I've just explained as far as the two ends of it. At the tip here, I'll do the same thing that I did with the silver, where I'm going to put crossed over full-size pieces of tape. So basically a plus, and then I'll cut some narrower pieces of tape that I can use to push down the kind of squared corners that doing the plus leaves me. This tape is a little bit thinner, a little bit more difficult to work with, so you actually have to use scissors to cut it. It doesn't tear as cleanly as the silver tape does. Like I said, if you don't want the white or black parts, I would just put a whole second coating of silver on the entire thing. The tip and then 2 more spirals over the whole blade. The tape is meant to be there so that if it gets damaged, it's really easy to repair. It's really easy to patch, as opposed to just the foam. So if you don't need it for training purposes, then you can just make the whole thing silver if you want. It'd save some money, I guess. Putting on the smaller pieces to push down those harder edges. And we're almost back to a point where you will get the original audio back. So strange. Just one chunk of this is without audio. Very weird. Okay, so then I'm just going to put a piece on the perimeter, kind of hold all of this in place. And then I will step away and do both the top and the bottom, the black and the white. And you'll see that in the rest of this clip. So that's it for my voiceover. All right, enjoy the rest of the video. All right, I'm back. I've put 2 coats of white tape on the top here, 2 coats of black tape on the bottom, and this is pretty much good to go. Last thing I mentioned that I'd be doing with this is putting some end caps on here. I mean, I could just cover it with tape, but after all this work, it seems worth it to actually put some caps on. It should cost you about, I don't know, with tape, probably $20-ish to make one of these. I think the rolls of tape are like $8 each, or yeah, and then it's probably going to cost a little bit more like $30 probably to make it. If you make more than one, it's cheaper. The tape is the main thing that gets you. So anyhow, good luck, and if anyone wants to make one, that's how you do it. So if you make improvements on it, I'd love to hear about it. Post pictures or add something in the comments, and great to know. We evolve together. All right, take care.